More secrets have been revealed about the ancient city of Teotihuacan. Researchers have spent years digging beneath the surface.
LiDAR works in a similar way to radar. It scans the ground by sending out 1 million laser points every 4 seconds.
Scientists methodically explored the debris-filled tunnel using a robotic probe.
The orbs are very interesting objects. I've never seen anything like them in any kind of other archaeological context.
Researchers thought Teotihuacan was already understood. Its layout was measured, its limits were defined, and nothing suggested a major surprise. That changed the moment ground-penetrating radar swept across the site. The scan was meant to confirm routine details. Yet the first readings showed patterns that did not match any known map. Something was hidden beneath the ruins, and it was far larger than anyone expected. The city that never fit the textbooks.
Pyramid of the Sun to consist of a total of 5 layers of pyramids, like a Russian nesting doll.
Teotihuacan has always been a difficult site for researchers to classify. At the surface, it appears to be a typical ancient city, but the more experts examined its design, the more it became clear that something did not add up. The planning of the city felt far beyond what is expected from the period. The scale of the pyramids, the accuracy of the measurements, and the overall layout raised questions that standard explanations could not fully answer. Many scholars admitted that Teotihuacan felt out of place in its own timeline. One of the first signs of this came from the city's alignments. The pyramids follow astronomical markers with surprising accuracy. The central avenue points in a direction that several studies described as tied to specific celestial events. This level of precision made researchers uncomfortable because no confirmed written records explain how the builders planned it.
The oldest layers are said to exhibit the most advanced building techniques.
According to some reports, the accuracy was close to what modern tools can produce. That claim introduced a problem. If the builders had no recorded system for calculating these measurements, then how did they achieve it? The confusion increased when teams started examining the areas beneath the structures. Early excavations revealed narrow passages under certain pyramids. Some of these areas had been sealed long ago with thick layers of stone. A number of researchers reported finding strange residues inside these passages. These traces did not match the surrounding soil, and their purpose was not clear. This created a sense among some experts that the visible city might be built over older or hidden sections that did not follow the same architectural style. Archaeologists tried to explore these spaces further, but they faced limits very quickly. Several tunnels were unsafe because of structural weakness. Others were filled with water. A few were blocked by stone walls that appeared intentionally placed. Teams could enter only the safest parts, which meant that the deeper regions remained untouched.
The end of the tunnel was used to store the remains of someone specific.
Because of this, the picture of Teotihuacan stayed incomplete. Researchers were able to document certain features, but they could not create a full understanding of what existed below the monuments. Over time, these gaps created frustration. Scholars believed they had a reasonable idea of the city's boundaries based on surface structures, but inconsistencies kept appearing. Some tunnels stopped suddenly with no clear purpose. Some walls were built thicker than necessary. Certain buildings did not line up with the expected orientation. These issues suggested that the accepted layout of Teotihuacan was missing important information. Several experts began to suspect that the true structure of the city extended deeper than anyone could see. That suspicion eventually pushed researchers to look for a method that could reveal the underground layout without entering the dangerous passages. This decision quietly opened the door to a technology that had never been used on Teotihuacan at this scale, and its results would soon change everything. The decision to scan what archaeology could not reach.
So is it possible that this mica chamber contained some type of an energy-producing device?
The decision to use ground-penetrating radar at Teotihuacan began with a moment of concern rather than curiosity. Engineers were assessing the stability of the pyramids when they noticed that the ground beneath certain areas reacted in an unusual way. The seismic tests they used normally return steady signals when the earth is solid. Instead, the readings at Teotihuacan jumped in a pattern that suggested large empty spaces beneath the structures. These results raised immediate alarms because hidden cavities can weaken a monument without warning. If a major pyramid had unknown voids beneath it, there was a real risk of collapse during earthquakes. The engineering team made it clear that the problem could not be ignored. Conservation groups supported this warning. They explained that any restoration work on such massive structures requires a full understanding of what lies underground. If the foundation is unstable, even routine repairs could cause damage. Several reports stated that conservation teams refused to begin long-term maintenance until the underground conditions were properly studied. This placed pressure on the archaeological teams, who now had to admit that they did not have reliable information about the subsurface layers. Researchers turned to records from earlier excavations, hoping for answers. Instead, they found more reasons to worry.
The tunnel was sealed 3 separate times, with walls that go from the floor to the ceiling.
Previous teams had tried to explore several tunnels, but reported dangerous and unpredictable conditions. Some described passages filled with loose debris that could shift without warning. Others mentioned sealed areas that looked intentionally blocked. These notes made it clear that physically entering the deeper levels would be unsafe. The structures were too old, too fragile, and too unpredictable to risk further excavation. This left archaeologists in a difficult position. They had spent years relying on maps that were created from surface features, not from confirmed underground data. According to several specialists, this meant that large portions of Teotihuacan were based on assumptions rather than direct evidence. That realization created frustration and a sense of urgency. They understood the visible parts of the city, but they were blind to what existed below it. The site attracted millions of visitors each year, and government officials were concerned that structural hazards could pose a danger to tourism and national heritage. Because of these concerns, the team began looking for a method that could reveal the underground layout without disturbing anything. Ground-penetrating radar became the logical option. It could send signals into the earth and return images of buried chambers, tunnels, and structural changes. It did not require drilling or digging, which meant the fragile ruins would remain intact. Advances in the technology also meant that large areas could finally be scanned with high accuracy.
The team's work is getting a boost from cutting-edge technology like this robot. It entered the caverns before archaeologists did.
With rising pressure from conservation authorities and the promise of a safe solution, the government approved the project. This marked the first attempt to map the entire underground world of Teotihuacan. The team expected only minor adjustments to the existing maps. They believed the scan would clear up small uncertainties and nothing more. They were wrong. As soon as the radar began sweeping beneath the city, the first signals revealed patterns that no one could explain, and the investigation stepped into entirely new territory. The first anomalies. The first scans were expected to show simple soil layers and a few familiar tunnels. Instead, the radar returned images that made several members of the team pause.
The team has only explored 7 of the 120 meters of caves, and it will likely be years before they reach the end of the tunnel.
The earliest readings displayed long reflections beneath the ground. These reflections formed clean, straight lines that did not match any known features of the surface city. Straight lines underground are unusual, and the engineers knew that natural soil and rock do not behave that way. This was the first sign that something unexpected waited below Teotihuacan. As the scans continued, more irregularities appeared. Some of the anomalies were found at depths where no construction was believed to exist. According to several specialists, these depths were far beyond the known building phases of the city. The idea that something had been built so far down created confusion. There were no records suggesting any ancient group had worked at those levels, yet the radar signals hinted at the presence of structures. The team became even more uneasy when the images showed perfect right angles. These angles appeared in several locations and were sharply defined. Nature rarely creates shapes like this in deep soil. Engineers reported that the precision of the angles suggested human design. This discovery raised new questions. If these angles were part of a larger structure, then the accepted map of Teotihuacan was incomplete. The radar then revealed a large empty space beneath a residential area that had never drawn attention before. The void was far larger than a normal tunnel. Its size suggested a chamber or open room. This created shock among the researchers because no previous excavation had identified anything significant in that zone. It was a quiet area of the site, considered unimportant until the radar proved otherwise. As more data came in, multiple readings pointed to chambers arranged in patterns that did not match any known tunnel system. Some appeared to branch, while others formed clusters. The team reviewed earlier excavation notes but found nothing that could explain these new shapes. Several researchers believed they were looking at an undocumented section of the city. Others warned against drawing conclusions too early. Still, the data continued to show shapes that did not match natural formations. The biggest surprise came when the anomalies stretched beyond the official boundaries of Teotihuacan.
The late 1990s, the Mexican government has since sealed off this portion of the site.
This was the first indication that the underground world might extend farther than the visible city. Engineers analyzed the reflections and confirmed that they were not geological. They were artificial. With each new scan, the scale of the mystery grew. the team expanded the scanning grid, understanding that these findings were only the beginning of something much larger. As the scanning area widened, the isolated shapes began to link together in ways that none of them expected. A hidden order starts to appear. When the radar team expanded the scanning grid, they expected the new data to look as scattered and confusing as the first anomalies. Instead, something strange happened. Several of the reflections began to line up in ways that caught the attention of both the engineers and the archaeologists. What had originally appeared as isolated shapes now started to form straight sequences. These sequences were not perfect lines, but they were orderly enough to stand out. According to a few members of the team, the alignment felt intentional, in a way that natural formations rarely are. The researchers continued scanning additional sections of the site, and the pattern became even harder to dismiss. Shapes from completely different zones began to connect with each other. A reflection from one area curved in a line that matched a reflection from a zone several meters away. When the team placed the images side by side, the two shapes formed a pathway that seemed to run across the scanning fields. This caused a noticeable shift in the room, because the team knew that these kinds of connections do not appear without structure. As the scans continued, certain angles repeated themselves. They were found in separate grids, but shared the same measurements. Some engineers stated that these matching angles suggested a planned layout.
And scanners and radar made the crucial discovery of bodies buried in the farthest chambers.
Nature does not repeat angles with that level of consistency over long distances. This realization created a mixture of excitement and concern among the team. If these angles belonged to a single system, then the underground world was more organized than previously believed. Another detail added to the confusion. Several voids appeared evenly spaced apart. This even spacing would be unusual for caves or erosion pockets, which tend to form irregular patterns. The radar signatures strongly suggested that these were not random empty spaces. They behaved more like rooms or sections of corridors that had been placed according to a design. Some specialists reported that the spacing resembled the layout of early construction phases in other archaeological sites. The radar also captured reflections that hinted at partial walls or the edges of underground corridors. These were not full structures, and they were not clear enough to identify with certainty, but they were too straight and too consistent to ignore. The presence of these fragments suggested that the anomalies were connected to something that had once been built deliberately. At this point, the tone of the investigation changed. The team realized they were no longer looking at a handful of stray readings. They were looking at pieces of something that had structure and purpose. The number of linked anomalies kept increasing, and the patterns became too strong to dismiss as coincidence. These connections pushed the team to move forward with the next step. They merged the scattered data into a single model, hoping to see a clearer picture of what they were dealing with. That merge produced an image no one expected, because once the fragments were unified, the underground world took on a far more deliberate shape. The hidden blueprint. When the scattered scans were finally merged into one unified model, the room fell silent. The researchers had expected a slightly clearer image of the underground anomalies. What appeared on the screen was far more organized than anything they had discussed. For the first time, a complete underground layout began to reveal itself. Lines that once seemed random now formed boundaries. Shapes that looked meaningless now became rooms, corridors, and platforms. The underground world was not a collection of disconnected cavities. It was a planned environment. The team studied the merged pathways first. They ran through the subsurface in long, continuous lines that did not drift or wobble. Their direction was steady, and they formed a grid that extended beneath several districts on the surface. This was not the kind of pattern caused by natural erosion. The precision suggested deliberate design, and several specialists noted that the grid seemed to follow a logic that matched the planning of the upper city. As they zoomed in on specific clusters, the details became sharper. Some sections held rectangular formations that closely resembled rooms. These shapes appeared in repeated geometric patterns. According to a few researchers, this repetition suggested that the rooms had assigned functions or belonged to a complex that had once been used regularly. Nothing about these shapes looked accidental. Each one seemed to be part of a larger system. The most surprising features were found beneath the major pyramids. Under the Pyramid of the Moon, the scans revealed a multi-level complex that paralleled the design on the surface but contained shapes that had no known counterpart. Under the Pyramid of the Sun, several branching corridors appeared that radiated outward in a circular pattern.
Some experts believe the city might have been called Teotihuacan, meaning City of the Sun, reasoning that the name might have changed to Teotihuacan.
This circular layout had not been seen in any previous excavation notes. Reported reactions from the team indicated that these discoveries challenged long-held assumptions about how the city was constructed. As the team traced the outlines of these structures, the pattern became unmistakable. The lower level of Teotihuacan was constructed with a level of intention that matched or even surpassed the visible city. Corridors, rooms, and platforms linked together in a way that resembled a multi-level metropolis. It did not look improvised or accidental. It looked planned from the start. Once the basic blueprint was confirmed, the team began measuring the full extent of the underground layout.
It's easy to imagine that the Aztecs themselves believed that this city was created by the gods.
They compared the dimensions to the known city limits. The results were difficult to process. The underground grid extended far beyond the documented boundaries of Teotihuacan. Entire sections stretched into areas that were not even considered part of the ancient settlement. This forced the analysts to recalculate the city's footprint. According to their revised estimates, the known size of Teotihuacan had been dramatically underestimated. The subsurface layout indicated that the city functioned on two connected layers, and the lower one was much larger than the upper one. This suggested a population and level of activity far beyond what scholars had believed possible. The blueprint did not just expand the city, it redefined it. The team had barely begun processing this revelation when the deeper scans produced something unexpected. A new layer of signals appeared beneath the mapped blueprint, and these signals hinted at something far more disturbing waiting below. And just when the team thought the discovery had reached its peak, deeper scans revealed something even more disturbing buried beyond the mapped blueprint. The depths that were never meant to be found. Once the main blueprint was confirmed, the team pushed the equipment to scan even deeper.
LiDAR works in a similar way to radar. It scans the ground by sending out 1 million laser points every 4 seconds.
They wanted to know if the underground city ended where the model stopped, or if something lay beneath the planned grid. The first deeper scans returned faint signals that were difficult to interpret, yet they repeated in a consistent pattern. The team strengthened the scanning resolution and focused on this new area. What appeared next created immediate tension in the room. Below the mapped network was another sector that had never been documented. It contained dozens of distinct cavities arranged in a formation that looked intentional. As the scans became clearer, the shapes separated into individual chambers. Rough counts indicated around 50 of them, although some reports claimed there might be more. Their arrangement resembled a sealed complex, rather than natural hollows. None of these chambers connected directly to the pathways of the blueprint above. This separation suggested that this lower zone had been isolated on purpose and not simply abandoned. According to several researchers, the fact that the chambers were uniform in size hinted at a planned design with a specific purpose. The most unsettling detail came from the entrances. Every chamber appeared to be sealed behind 3 layers of barriers. These barriers resembled door-like features, although the radar could not provide complete clarity. What made them shocking was their thickness. Some specialists reported that the barriers looked denser than typical Teotihuacan stonework. This raised the idea that the chambers had been constructed using a method that differed from the upper city. A few experts suggested that the builders reinforced these entrances to ensure that no one could enter them easily. The interior reflections added another layer of uncertainty. Several chambers produced signals that indicated metallic or highly reflective objects inside. These reflections did not match the signatures of simple pottery or stone tools. Some researchers believed that these signals might indicate metal artifacts or items with polished surfaces.
Now a team of researchers have made a discovery which could shed light on the culture and may eventually help explain why it died out.
Others urged caution and explained that reflections can sometimes be misleading. A few scans also showed unusual shapes that looked like statues or ritual objects. These interpretations were speculative, but they caused a wave of excitement mixed with concern among the team. The sealed nature of the chambers created growing fear. If the builders had gone through the trouble of constructing 3 barriers per chamber, and if they used reinforced material that did not match the rest of the city, then the contents might have been considered dangerous, sacred, or forbidden. No one could explain why the chambers were sealed so intensely. Reports from some researchers suggested that the builders wanted to ensure that whatever was inside remained untouched for as long as possible. This idea raised troubling questions. What were they trying to hide? Why did they isolate these rooms from the rest of the underground network? The discovery of these sealed chambers shifted the investigation from curiosity to caution. The deeper scans did not simply reveal more architecture. They revealed a part of Teotihuacan that seemed deliberately concealed and protected in a way that could not be overlooked. As these findings spread, the debate erupted immediately, and experts divided sharply over whether the chambers should ever be opened. The fierce debate. When the news of the sealed chambers broke, the mood at the research center turned from excitement to argument.
In 100 years of archaeological research in Teotihuacan, we still haven't found a ruler's grave.
Opinions split quickly and loudly. On one side were archaeologists who said the chambers must be opened. Professor Elena Murillo became the public face of that position. She argued that the chambers likely hold artifacts of national and global importance. According to reported statements, Murillo called the finds a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and said the public had a right to see what had been hidden for millennia. Her supporters insisted that careful excavation could bring new evidence about Teotihuacan that would rewrite textbooks. On the other side stood specialists who warned that opening the sealed rooms could cause irreversible damage. Structural engineer Rafael Torres pushed back hard. He told officials that breaking through 3 reinforced barriers per chamber introduces a real danger to the surrounding network. Torres and other engineers reported that pressure changes, the removal of load-bearing elements, or the sudden exposure to air and water could cause collapses in adjacent tunnels. Their position was blunt.
Into a mysterious world built beneath the first megacity in the Americas.
The physical integrity of the lower city could depend on leaving the seals intact. The debate was not only technical. Some archaeologists argued that the sealed rooms might contain ritual items or remains that communities today consider sacred. According to reported comments from several local groups, there was concern that opening the chambers without broad consultation would disrespect living descendants and their heritage. A few indigenous leaders asked for time to be included in decision-making.
Someone with a lot of power, most likely a first-era leader of Teotihuacan.
They warned against turning sacred spaces into spectacle. Practical concerns multiplied. Some team members feared that what lay inside could be chemically unstable or even toxic, based on unusual radar reflections and reports of residues from earlier excavations. Other specialists cautioned that radar signatures can be misleading and that there was no direct proof of hazardous materials. These disagreements created a climate of fear mixed with frustration. Several researchers accused each other of rushing to capitalize on media attention or of blocking discovery for personal reasons. The government moved in quickly to manage the conflict. Officials convened a panel of independent experts and ordered a series of non-invasive tests. International specialists were flown in to review the radar data and propose safe procedures. According to official statements, the mandate was to strike a balance between preservation, scientific knowledge, and public interest. Despite multiple assessments, the panel could not reach consensus. Engineers warned that any forced opening carried risks. Some archaeologists argued that delaying access would mean losing a chance to document context before oxygen altered fragile materials. The tension intensified in public forums. Media outlets ran heated debates. Some commentators accused authorities of hiding national heritage. Others demanded extreme caution. The gridlocked atmosphere prevented clear action. Excavation plans were suspended while additional risk assessments and environmental studies were scheduled. After weeks of deliberation and mounting pressure from both sides, the authorities announced a compromise. No chambers would be opened until a universally accepted, low-risk protocol could be demonstrated. According to the official release, further research would continue using non-invasive methods and international oversight. The decision satisfied no one completely. Some praised the caution, others called it cowardly. In the end, the sealed rooms remained closed. The discovery that had promised to answer old questions instead created a new one. The argument over whether to break the doors left Teotihuacan's deepest secret on hold, and the mystery of what lies behind those reinforced barriers only grew sharper. If you enjoyed watching this video, please like and subscribe to this channel.